You're listening to Cosmic Cousins, Soul-Centered Astrology. I'm your host, Jeff Henshaw. Cosmic Cousins is a weekly astrology podcast dedicated to creating a sacred container for deepening your connection to the cosmos. Each episode offers space for ritual, meditation, and contemplation, supporting your journey of embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Thanks for tuning in.
Gold in my skin carries the weight of my kin.
Hey, Cosmic Cousins. Welcome back to another week of the podcast. Today we are gathering for the Capricorn Full Moon, which finds itself right here at the end of June. June 29th, 2026 is the date and time of this Capricorn Full Moon on the west coast of the United States where I live. So you might translate it to your time zone. For some of you, it might actually be falling early in the morning on June 30th, depending on where in the world you are. But either way, this Capricorn full moon finds itself at 8 degrees of Capricorn and 14 minutes just here at the end of June in 2026. And this is a big day. Not only is it the Capricorn full moon, Jupiter is also shifting into Leo as well. Jupiter only changes signs about once a year. So we're going to get into all of that today. We also have a guest on the podcast today, my friend Corinna Rosella, who is a Capricorn sun and moon. And in our conversation, we go deep into talking about ecological grief, plant wisdom, and the courage to care. The title of this episode is Hope is a Seed, which is inspired from Corinna's philosophy of continuing to create and tend and care even amid uncertainty and grief. And so you'll want to stick around for that conversation. I do have a summer special available for the Cosmic Mixtape, which I call a soundtrack for your soul. The Cosmic Mixtape is a personalized astrology experience that transforms your birth chart into a soulful soundtrack through an in-depth recorded reading and a carefully curated playlist for you. So I look at your birth chart and I choose about 10 to 12 songs that speak to the themes in your chart, and then I record your own personalized podcast reading experience. So right now there are 10 slots available with 10 discount codes available now through the end of Cancer season. Each is offering $50 off of a personalized Cosmic Mixtape, so you can use the coupon code CANCER upon checkout, and I've put a link in the show notes to that. I think that will be a fun way to connect this summer. So let's get into feeling into Capricorn. Capricorn first, it's connected to the knees, the bones, the teeth. So you might take a moment to pause and breathe into these parts of the body, and also consider what these body parts might mean to you. Again, the knees, the bones, and the teeth. Capricorn, is cardinal earth. It's also our collective earth sign, so it does expand our perceptions wide, while it's still taking a very practical approach. So the Capricorn full moon, it happens once a year, always during Cancer season. It offers a very grounding balance to the emotional currents of Cancer season. If you are a Cancer, happy birthday to you. Happy solar return. This is the sign that you evolved through, Capricorn. So Cancer, which is a sign connected to home and family, might want to, stay behind the scenes and tend more to the emotional realms. But Capricorn encourages Cancer to put themselves out into the world, to think bigger than just their immediate home and family, to seek some sort of platform in which to utilize your gifts of leadership. And so Cancer has really learned to grow and evolve through the sign of Capricorn. And this Capricorn full moon is here to teach us that. So during the Capricorn full moon, now is a time to tend to your commitments, to clarify priorities, and remember that sustainable structures in your life require consistent choices over time. When I think of Capricorn and its connection to the teeth, I think about flossing every day, which is like these smaller, consistent choices that we make over an extended period of time that lead to sustainability, growth, and health. So now is the time during this Capricorn full moon, because full moons will illuminate things, for us to open ourselves up to receiving greater insight into the larger unfolding themes in our life, including your career, your legacy, your long-term commitments, your businesses, systems in your life. And there are a couple of notable things about this particular Capricorn full moon, one of which I already mentioned, but this is on the same day as this full moon. Jupiter, the planet of growth and expansion, the largest planet in our solar system, enters the sign of Leo, where it'll be for the next year, shifting our attention toward creativity, courage, joyful self-expression, and leading from the heart. More of that to come in the weeks to follow. We'll continue to be exploring Jupiter in the sign of Leo. However, there's also this invitation to slow down on this full moon because Mercury stations retrograde on the same day as this full moon in the sign of Cancer, the opposite to Capricorn. So there's opportunity to revisit emotional patterns with Mercury retrograde and Cancer. There is the invitation to explore old family dynamics, to explore your ancestry, to reconnect to past memories. This will likely all arise throughout the remainder of Cancer season, as Mercury will be retrograde for the rest of Cancer season. So now is a time to prioritize self-care. This is true. It's Cancer season anyway, but Mercury retrograde in Cancer is shifting the energy towards prioritizing self-care, home, and family themes even more acutely. And so while we may start to receive insights on this Capricorn full moon of what Jupiter and Leo might look like and feel like for us over the next year, I think it's important to know that the exact moment of this full moon occurs with Jupiter still in the sign of Cancer at the anaretic degree of Cancer, which is the final degree of Cancer. And so the exact moment of this full moon, Jupiter is at 29 degrees of Cancer, which is the final degree, and 56 minutes. So this feels significant because even though we know Jupiter is preparing itself to enter Leo, we're still riding this full moon wave until the new moon in Cancer 2 weeks from now. So really, Sun's in Cancer, Mercury's retrograde in Cancer. This full moon's happening at the anaretic degree. So those of you that are feeling really excited for Jupiter and Leo, I would really encourage you to not fully feel into that shift until we have the Jupiter cazimi, which will be when Jupiter and the Sun catch up together in the sky with each other. I think that's at 4 degrees of Leo, which is also very interesting. And I might as well just fact check that now, since I'm giving you the exact degree. But the Sun will enter Leo, meaning that it's going to start to catch up to Jupiter. And so the Sun doesn't enter Leo until we get to July 22nd. And actually, they meet up in the sky at 6 degrees of Leo is what I'm noting. And that's in a month, July 29th. And so intuitively, I really am feeling that until the Jupiter cazimi, which is July 29th, a month from this full moon, which, by the way, I'm looking as the Aquarius full moon. Until the Aquarius full moon, we won't fully realize the effects of what Jupiter shifting into Leo might feel like because we're still in Cancer season. Mercury's retrograde in Cancer, and this full moon is taking place with Jupiter at the anaretic degree of Cancer. So really what this feels like is it's encouraging reflection on the last year's worth of emotional growth that we've experienced since Jupiter's been in Cancer. I think Mercury retrograde in Cancer over the coming few weeks continues this process, calling for greater mercurial discernment when it comes to the ways that we invite genuine care and reciprocity into our lives. To offer greater guidance to any full moon, we can always look to the ruling planet of whatever full moon we're meditating on. And so this full moon, of course, we can look to Saturn, the ruling planet of Capricorn. And Saturn is currently in the sign of Aries. Saturn entered Aries last year for a little bit and then went back into Pisces. And then Saturn fully entered the sign of Aries earlier this year in February. And Saturn will be in the sign of Aries for the next 2 years or so. I guess about a year and a half now, we'll have Saturn in Aries. And so we are building structures in our lives around Aries themes in our life. And so if you have any planets in Aries in your chart, they're going through some sort of maturation process and restructuring over the coming 2 years or so. And so this full moon is offering us an opportunity to not only check back in with Saturn being in the sign of Aries, but also might bring us some insights into what Saturn in Aries is encouraging us into over this 2-year time period or so that Saturn is in this cardinal fire sign. And so now calls for a time for greater responsibility, of course, because it's Saturn, but into your own individual path, into your own sense of autonomy, individuality, and the way that you show up as a leader and entrepreneur. So cultivating healthy self-leadership is Saturn in Aries, building a future through courageous, intentional action rather than reaction. You know, Aries can be a reactive sign, but with Saturn here, it does make us think about the Emperor in the tarot. And actually, in our conversation with Corinna, we do the Whimsical Wanderings, Mystical Meanderings, which is a intuitive channel for the full moon. So I led Corinna through a series of questions, and they intuitively answered the first thing that popped in their mind. And one of the things that happened was they pulled a card for us at the end of that journey, and the card we got was adolescence. And some of what they spoke about felt very connected to the Emperor and felt very connected to Saturn and Aries, because it was about embracing the courage to reinvent ourselves and taking responsibility for our own individual path and trusting that we are supported by not only our ancestors, but also by our higher self, is something that said. And when I think of our ancestors, it is making me think of this quote by Queen of Aries, named Queen of Aries by the Cosmic Cousins community in 2019. But Maya Angelou, Queen of Aries, has this quote about ancestors that's coming to me right now. And I think it's something like, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. And also, we are never alone. We are accompanied by the ancestors of our family, and they are with us whether we are conscious of it or not. And so that's also Aries. Aries comes with, it's not just the first sign, it comes with the wisdom of the entirety of the zodiacal wheel. So yeah, Saturn in Aries is here for us as support on this Capricorn full moon. And so while this full moon is here to remind us to focus on larger structures in our life, being that it's Capricorn, we're also met with these shifting energies of Jupiter entering Leo, Mercury stationing retrograde in Cancer. And so there is this balance between forward momentum, which is very, Capricorn is cardinal, Saturn and Aries is cardinal, but Saturn also asks us to restrict a bit. And so we're balancing this forward momentum with reflection, Mercury retrograde in Cancer. We're balancing ambition with emotional honesty. And whatever new visions are appearing for you right now, there's also this kind of counterbalance invitation of patience, of pause, of waiting. So we're in this pivotal moment of the year, right? It's a cardinal season, so we're shifting into a new season entirely. And I think we'll have much more clarity and insight as we reach the Cancer new moon in 2 weeks. And so, again, thanks as always for tuning in. If you'd like to book an astrology reading with me, I do have availability for readings on Fridays now, as well as cosmic mixtapes available. Again, you can use coupon code CANCER to gift yourself a cosmic mixtape. And as always, thank you for tuning into the podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast, you could become a supporter on the Substack. Links in the show notes there. And you could also leave some comments and reviews and share with someone that you love to help the podcast keep growing. But at this time, let's transition into our conversation with Capricorn herbalist, artist, and community organizer whose work weaves together astrology, tarot, plant medicine, analog photography, and ecological care, my friend, Corinna Rosella. Let's tune into this conversation now. Yeah, so today with us on the podcast, I'm super excited and honored to have Corinna Rosella with us, who is a not only a Capricorn sun, but you're also a Capricorn moon and have other things going on in Capricorn too. And to kind of set up for this time period with you for this Capricorn full moon, I brought out this grief cold brew tea.
Ooh.
Karina's the kind of friend that will bring you tea when you're feeling sick and just you really show up in those moments as a community member and friend. I also am drinking the tea out of this Respect the Locals desert tortoise mug in honor of your most recent Substack post, which I'd like to get into with you today.
Aw.
But thanks for being with us here on Cosmic Cousins.
Thank you, Jeff. It is a great honor and privilege to be in conversation with you today.
Yeah, I kind of want to start out with this tea.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting if I can share a little. You know me, so I have a hard time like keeping things under 30 seconds when I like really it's really like I have a hard time keeping things under 5 minutes, but I'm gonna try in this conversation. But when you said like Karina's really good for like showing up with tea, and then you also were like, and you have a Capricorn moon, I actually feel like that's an intricate part of a Capricorn moon personality because Capricorn moons, the stereotype around us is that we're cold and unemotional. And I do think there's something to be said for that. But I think, we know Capricorn's the sea goat. There's a lot of emotions under the surface. I think my way of showing up, I'm not the most like warm and fuzzy person. I'm not the most friendly person. I gotta be real. But I'm good at showing up for people when they're having, going through stuff with like tangible support. And I think that's a very Capricorn moon thing is that we like Capricorn moons are like, we're not gonna like cuddle you when you're having a bad day. We're not gonna like stroke your hair, but we will be like, okay, have you eaten? Do you need water? Should I go get some water for you? Should I get some tea for you? We're like it's the pragmatism of Capricorn in the moon placement.
I think as a Virgo moon, I really relate to a lot of what you're
Mhm.
sharing too. I think Virgo moon might have some overlap there. And I think in terms of like love languages, it's like acts of service as a love language.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That like commitment to your community that exists within Virgo, because people, as you know, like are like Virgo perfectionists, which is such a shallow read. And like same with Capricorns, people are Capricorn is the capitalist, which is a very shallow read as well. So
Yeah.
yes, I love making tea for people. I love making custom tea blends for people. And this has been a big year of grief. Unfortunately, we will have many more big years of grief to come. The grief will proliferate. And what better way to show up for one another than like helping people connect with plants
Yeah.
and develop those relationships for their own sustainability and self-care.
What's coming up for me right now is I'm thinking about, well, especially because we're talking about tea and herbs. And I don't even know if you want to talk about this or not, but I'm just going to bring it up because it's something that I'm reflecting on is how a year ago I actually asked you to be on the podcast for the Capricorn full moon, and it wasn't the right time because you were going through like a major transition, which was the business storefront, at least, Milk
Mhm.
Thistle was closing. And Milk Thistle, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's an herb shop, also tarot decks, candles, classes, a gallery, like community space, shows, bands in the backyard, like all kinds of gatherings happened at Milk Thistle. And yeah, you were going through that process about, wasn't it this time last year that you were closing the
Yeah.
doors to Milk Thistle?
Yes. Yeah. So Jeff, I mean, we met like many years ago, I think, and have been familiar with one another, but I think we got reacquainted and started like growing our friendship, because of the existence of Milk Thistle, which was a apothecary gallery community workshop space in Yucca Valley, which is a rural conservative town right outside of Joshua Tree that I live in. And I decided to close it last spring because it wasn't sustainable. And I think like, I reached a level of burnout that I've never reached before that kind of like changed me forever in a lot of ways where I just I've always been like kind of like earlier in my life, like building my business and stuff. I was like very type A. Like people would always be like, how do you do it all? And I was like hyper focus, so much hyper focus. Like I just like, and I just kind of lost that ability. Milk Thistle was so stressful. It was such a beautiful space and I made, amazing friendships, and built incredible community. And I'm like so proud of that work, but it wasn't sustainable for me, like financially, energetically. And, I think I was at a point where I was like, I could look for solutions or I could just pull the plug and take care of myself for a while and like trust the process that like this will unfold the way it needs to be. And other opportunities are out there and like the community lives on. And I think that's very true. And I think I still have a lot of grief about that space. I think that it had the potential to be something like great that was long lasting. But the structure that I built for it was not sustainable. And yeah, I just was at a point of exhaustion where like taking a step back to try to rebuild a new structure didn't feel like it was going to be doable.
Yeah.
But Milk Thistle was an incredible place. And I still hear from people. Like I have an herbalism class, and there was someone who's in it, who lives in a different part of the country, who said, "Oh, I found out about this because 3 years ago in Joshua Tree, I came into your shop, and I always meant to sign up for
Oh,
this class." So it's like I got to connect with like-minded people from all over because so many people vacation in Joshua Tree, and I think like when you do something like that, it like ripples out to the world in ways that you don't see right away. And it's going to be many years, I think, of realizing like the impact that space had. But it was, yeah, a year ago now, I was like so empty and depleted as a human. It was like, if you got a text message from me, it would be like, it would sound like an automated message from like a telemarketer because I just had no ability to even like communicate. It was just like, hello, please drop this off between 4 and 5. Have a nice afternoon. Like it was just like I had nothing left. It was so exhausting.
well, Milk Thistle for me introduced me to Anastasia of Death Cafe. I met them at you and Mary Evans' like joint show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's where I like really started connecting with Mary. I mean, me and Mary were friends before that, but I was supporting
Yeah.
Mary with like craft classes. I made a connection with someone who writes for the local newspaper, and they wrote about my travel tarot deck. Like I met so many people through Milk Thistle, and I think that's something for us to remember about Capricorn here on the Capricorn full moon is that it is the collective earth sign. It does practical things for the collective. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we think of Aquarius as the collective sign, which it is, it's collective air. So I think that combination with air makes us maybe associate Aquarius more with the collective because it's an air sign, but Capricorn is just as collective focused. And Milk Thistle was a place for community gathering. And so I wanted to honor that on the Capricorn full moon and thinking about it now. Um, as a Capricorn, someone with so much Capricorn, you, last year, Jupiter had just entered Cancer. And so Capricorns this whole past year have been learning about Cancer in really big ways, which I had heard in what you were sharing as like needing to take care of yourself, have reached burnout, because I think Capricorn can reach burnout. And I think Cancer does teach Capricorn to, slow down, go within, and process their emotions. So that I'm thinking about that. How has Jupiter and Cancer been for you as a Capricorn? You also don't you have your North Node in Cancer as
I
well?
do. I'm an eclipse baby, eclipse season baby. So I have a Capricorn moon, sun, south node, and Mercury. And then I have my north node in Cancer in the 10th house.
Mhm.
So I joke and I say, my mission in this life, this is a joke. I don't think this is what it is. I'm like Capricorn 10th or Cancer 10th house. My life purpose is to overshare on the internet. Yeah,
That's
but
one of the
I so Jupiter and Cancer, that's a good question because I haven't really thought about it super specifically. I'm thinking a lot about Jupiter and Leo, but I feel like with Jupiter and Cancer for me, I have an association with Jupiter um that Jupiter it puts me really in touch with feelings of burnout, which I think people often with Jupiter, they're like, Jupiter, it's like expansion and growth. And like, I think of it, I often refer to Jupiter as like, I tell clients and stuff, I'm like, it's kind of like the casino of planets. It's like bright, there's tons of lights, you can like win big. But then also, if you're sensitive, or if you have Saturn in like, not I'm not ruled by Saturn, I'm ruled by Venus, but like if you have like a lot of Saturn influence in your chart, then like Jupiter can feel very overwhelming. And I think like for me with Jupiter in my 10th house, I think the biggest thing, Jeff, of this year that I didn't really expect, and this also I associate as my final Pluto conjunction, that I'm going through in my lifetime, which is my ruling planet Venus, is like in a conjunction with transiting Pluto. It was stepping more into being a visual artist. And you brought up like Mary and I did the Blue Shadows on Earth show a couple years ago, and that was like kind of that gateway for me of like I've been a visual artist, but and again, Capricorn, we are slow. Time, accountability, process. Like I've been a visual artist, but I think like Jupiter and Cancer for me has fully been like, what if I claim myself as an artist? What if I call myself an artist? What if I monetize my art? And
Mm.
that's been a huge thing in the last year is that I've been, participating in gallery shows. I like rejoined an art collective that I was a part of in the early years of Milk Thistle. And been working on like a tarot archetypes project and like have a Substack and where I share my art. And I think that's been my big takeaway in the last year is like being like, the world is, I don't even need to say it. Like we all know, like we're living in like devastating, tragic times and we're at the precipice of it all. And then how do we like hold two realities of like, this is the reality of the world we live in, and how do I make things beautiful and how do I connect? And I think Cancer, like we were talking about earlier, it is about, I think both Cancer and Capricorn actually are about a legacy. Because I've
Yeah.
been saying this thing that I thought of when you were talking. I created this like quote or whatever. I have this saying that I think that I feel like is very like Saturnian and Capricornian. Time builds a legacy. So
Yeah.
like you can't rush through things. Like it's time, it's the commitment to time that builds your legacy over, and it's the accountability. It's not about doing everything perfectly the first time. It's about like being accountable to growth, accountable to the process. And I think that's the same with Cancer because Cancer is ancestral, It's like many layers in the past, many layers in the future, and Capricorn is like the structure of it all. So I think like Jupiter and Cancer, I mean, yeah, it like, I'm been in burnout. I think that I will never fully be in the place I was before in terms of burnout. But like, I think Jupiter and Cancer is like artistic expression. And yeah, knowing when like our inspiration doesn't just come from our own mind, it comes from like the context of like the many lives that we lived before and the many lives that we will live and like the little hints we're getting from ancestors and guides all the time.
Yeah. Which is interesting to think of the kind of like build up to Jupiter shifting in Leo and how that will, it's also artistic expression, but in a slightly different way. Like Cancer is
Totally.
out of the necessity to process one's emotions. And then Leo is like, okay, I'm ready to individuate and like be seen now. And it does make me think a bit of, the work that you're going to be doing over the next year with your photography project, which I'm wondering if you would like to check in about. And before we do, I just want to say that this Capricorn full moon, if you look at the Capricorn full moon chart, Jupiter is not in Leo yet, but it's actually this Capricorn full moon, Jupiter enters Leo, but on the exact moment of Capricorn full moon, Jupiter's at 29 degrees and 56 minutes of Cancer. And then
Okay.
we'll shift into Leo later that day. So there is like this kind of texture here on this Capricorn full moon of like, whoa, what did I learn with Jupiter in Cancer and what am I ready to step into with Jupiter in Leo? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so you've been working on this photography project, and I just kind of want to, I had forgotten you had Venus in Aquarius. I just want to remind all the listeners, this feels very Venus in Aquarius, and you also mentioned it's your chart ruler because you're a Libra rising. Karina is a tarot reader, evolutionary astrologer, herbalist, flower essence practitioner, multidisciplinarian artist, and someone whose work is deeply rooted in ecology and magic of the high desert. So that feels very Venus and Aquarius. Like you have very many different, paths that you like to work with. I mean, I would think that's Venus and Aquarius.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Venus in Aquarius, it's like the most queer
Mhm.
placement for Venus, in my opinion. But it not queer, like, I mean, I don't want to be like not queer in a traditional way because like there is no tradition around like what queer, but queer as in like, very like mute, not, I mean, it's not mutable, it's fixed, but like it feels it feels like a very like fluid energy of like, yeah, like expansiveness. Because I think of Aquarius as being people who like, always see the big, it's like the world card. I was just having this conversation with someone. The world card as Capricorn is very like to the bones about it, and the world card as Aquarius is very like the visionary part of it. So I do feel like, I have very little, like my chart is almost entirely cardinal. So having that Aquarius in my ruling planet it does make it feel like, yeah, it's just like I get bored easily and I hyperfixate. And I think I love to learn new things and I'm always taking classes and like building my skill set. So like my photography, I've been doing analog photography almost as long as I've been reading tarot. So like coming and longer than I've been well I've been, messing around with herbalism for about 20 years now. But yeah, like all of these things I've been doing for the better part of 2 decades except for astrology, which I've been doing for 1 decade now, studying for 1 decade, practicing, for most of that time. So like, and flower essences as well is like a newer thing. But I think like what I'm really interested in is integration, which I think is also, I don't know if you think that, but I do feel like Aquarius is kind of like integration of like many different parts. And I feel like, I've been an analog photographer for years, and that was sort of like my weird solo thing in the desert, like going out into the desert like all day and like taking pictures of like abandoned places and like flowers and stuff. And now it's become something that I'm doing with other people because I'm sort of reimagining tarot archetypes in people who I know in the community. And
Mhm.
that has been really rewarding because I'm like, okay, tarot, it's a thing that I've done for almost 2 decades. Like I've read, I've taught it since, you know, before a little bit before the pandemic. Um, and then I've been like doing my analog photography for, since almost just as long, but I haven't like melded these two interests before. And that's what I love about like, this is going to sound like cheesy and like Pollyanna, but it's like what I love about life is like you can always find, I know, like, but it's like, and I've been having this conversation with people. We're like, how do we hold to realities? Like, we're living in mass extinction. We're living on the onset of fascism. These are very real things. There's very horrible, horrible things happening. There's multiple genocides happening. And how do we make a life worth living? Because it's not, we can't just drown in the sorrow of it. Like that's not helpful. And I'm like, okay, well, how can I reimagine these archetypes? Because these, archetypes are supposed to help us understand what it means to be alive or whatever. So I feel like that's the exciting thing about being alive is there's always new things to learn and like always new things to integrate. And
Yeah.
astrology is just like endless. Like I feel like there's always stuff to learn. Tarot is a little bit more. but not because then you apply tarot archetypes. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or if I just went
I
on.
mean, I do think in the last 10 years, we've seen so much love and energy put into reimagining the tarot archetypes
Oh, absolutely.
in such vast different ways. So I'm really excited about the upcoming exhibit party at the Palm Springs Art Museum called Queer Art,
Yes.
which is really, I would call it a celebration of like the last century of queer artists who've used tarot and other esoteric art forms as like forms of resistance and healing. And so Corinna and I actually are both part of a team of tarot readers who will be at the full moon gathering on August 28th, which is the Pisces full moon. So in just 2 months, where we'll both be offering mini readings. And I'm excited to be alongside you for that.
Mhm.
What decks are you going to be using at the at Queer Arcana?
I'm a huge fan of the Smith Rider-Waite. I guess that's the tradition in me.
Huh?
I think Smith Rider-Waite gives us so much imagery. I feel like I might want to use the Botanical Tarot. That's one that came out recently. It is what I love about it. I don't always love the like, as an, I do study like medical astrology and astroherbology, and I love it. But I don't always agree with all of it, especially like practically, like people will be like, I'm a Gemini sun. I should take this herb or whatever. And I'm like, okay, let's, like don't be that exact about it. But I love the botanical tarot because it gives like herbal suggestions. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to like take that herb, but it could be like meditate on this plant or like consider this plant or whatever. So I think I'll probably read with that one. I also I'll probably bring an oracle deck, and like one of my go-to oracle decks is Passages Oracle by Liliana Perez. If you know that one. And then I mean I also love Portals by Taylor Ursula. That's one that I read with all the time at Milk Thistle. I haven't read with it recently, so maybe I'll bring that out. But I feel like since I said Botanical Tarot, that's the one I'm gonna bring.
So yeah, y'all could come out for that. I think this exhibit is really exciting because it like Rachel Pollack's original drawings are in a glass display. There's some feminist decks from the 70s in a glass display. So if you're in the Southern California area and want to come out and see a really cool exhibit, and also there's going to be a DJ and an aura photo booth and other things going on. It's the full moon party last summer was really cool. Palm Springs Art Museum has one every year. Yeah, I had actually asked you one of the questions because you're like, is there anything for me to meditate on beforehand? And I was like, ooh, maybe bring a tarot deck that that you have or oracle deck that you think most deeply connects us to Capricorn. Did you come up with one?
No, I thought that you asked, maybe I read your email wrong. I thought that you asked me to do how being an herbalist relates to Capricorn.
I think that's great too. Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we talk
Yeah.
about
Which
that? I know so many Capricorns who actually are herbalists.
Yeah. I thought about that a lot actually. And I was thinking about it because one of my fascinations is I love looking at like the natal charts of like con artists and like serial killers. And one thing is this is gonna segue in, Jeff, I promise. So one thing is that like because I used to be someone who was like, oh my God, my chart is such a disaster. I'm a terrible person. Like, why am I so obsessed with work? And then I realized, like, if you look at Capricorns, being ruled by Saturn, it's just that we want to create like a sustainable structure. And a sustainable structure is not like the flashy energy of Jupiter. And it's not like the feel-good energy all the time of Venus or Libra. So I think Capricorn is about accountability. And I love when I do readings for people, I love looking at like how power dynamics show up in their chart. I think that's really important. And what I feel with Capricorns is that we tend to be very accountable to ourselves and also expect and hold others to that same standard. But there isn't a lot of dishonesty in that, I think. I can't speak to every Capricorn, but I think an evolved Capricorn is someone who thinks about equity all the time and reciprocity all the time. And for herbalism, like the thing about it is like there's so much that we can't control or change in our world right now. And if we focus on that, we're going to feel really we're going to feel really hopeless, and that's not a good place to be. And I'm not saying like it's not realistic to go to those places, because I think you need to sometimes go to rock bottom to be able to climb out and like see the light. But I think with herbalism, like plants have this ancient wisdom, this ancient knowledge. Plants are ancestral. When I first got into herbalism and was like trying to make my own potions, like 20 years ago now, I still had this mindset that was very like Western medicine, allopathic, where I was like, if I take this, this is going to help me in this way. And it was very like tit for tat, very like unevolved Capricorn about it. And like over the last 20 years of like working with plant medicine, I realized like plants teach us about like being comfortable with uncertainty, and they teach us about like building ourselves up from the ground up, because plant medicine, it's not a lot of Western medicine systems, which I'm not completely against them, but I think there's a balance and a nuance. A lot of Western medicine systems are like, oh, you have this ailment, let's give you a pill for it, no further discussion. And plants aren't necessarily going to change the function of your body. The plant medicine's role is to help your body support itself better. So like when I made you a grief tea, this is not to try, and this was interesting for me as like, I also do a lot of grief ritual and grief work and like and stuff like that within my other practices. And I feel like a lot of times, like, and I had to work through this myself, like, grief is not about letting go of the bad feelings. It's about integrating them and finding ways to sit with them and be like a more whole human. Because I really think, like, I really believe that, like, the people in power that are causing all this violence and harm, if they sat with their grief and they learned to grieve, like we wouldn't be living with the levels of violence we are. And that a lot of violence that happens is because of people's inability to grieve. So I think like plant medicine, like a grief tea, it's not there to be like taking away all your feelings. It's there to help your body and your brain support you through the feelings better.
Yeah.
So a lot of, yeah, go ahead.
I I'm not going to say this is always true with Western medicine, but and Western medicine can often be a way to ignore the grief and like
Yes.
cover it up. And so I think there is a correlation between, one, living in the United States, I had recently learned, I think it's the only place on the planet that allows pharmaceutical companies to advertise on TV or like actually advertise medicine to you. And I think that Western medicine, as many things that are incredible about it, that we need to integrate like modern technology with like more ancient practices, shows how intricately woven the pharmaceutical industry is with capitalism. And so there's just like this big disconnect because then it becomes this money-making thing where if I was talking to someone the other day where they're like, I just want to go cold turkey and get myself off all of my meds right now, but my doctor's telling me I'm not meant to do that. And we were kind of talking about how well they're making money, so of course they're going to tell you not to like go
Yeah.
cold turkey, So it's not always taking the patient's best interests at heart. It's taking more of like a capitalist approach. So there's a lot of like nuance there, but what I'm hearing from you is that plant medicine herbs are a way for you to better integrate and be in alignment with the earth.
Absolutely. And I think also something that you brought up that like pinged another thought for me is like, as much as people are like Capricorn is about like money, 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 work, work, work. It's like it's also about Saturn and like structure. So the way that the world is right now is not Capricornian or Saturnian because it doesn't function. We're living in a system and like being like, hey, don't get off your meds because then I won't get a cut from the insurance agent that paid for like sent all these pens that have Zoloft written on them or whatever. Like that's not sustainable in a structure. And like plant medicine, I mean, right now I think also a big part of why I'm an herbalist and a big thing that I teach my students is like us working with flowers and plants energetically is an honor to an earth that is being and has been completely altered by climate change, man-made climate change, corporate-made climate change, really. And like to honor and worship the earth with plants is really important. And it also brings us back to our own bodies. And like we can learn so much from plants. Just like watching the cycles of a flower or a tree is like a profoundly healing and strengthening experience.
You said something once. You like either went live on Insta or you made a video. I don't remember, but it comes back to me. I think I told you last time we hung out, but you said something that I still think about, which is even if you feel hopeless, if you just simply plant a seed, you're letting your body and nervous system know that you do you do have hope for the future in some way. Something I'm like paraphrasing what you said.
Hope is a seed for the future. Yeah. I have a
Totally.
collage that says that. Yeah, it's like I deal with really bad, bouts of depression. I have since I was like a very small child. And I think that made me like a type A where I was like, God, you keep planning stuff, plan stuff. So you always have something to look forward to. As I've gotten older, I don't have the energy for that. But like, I live in the high desert. Right now I have like a watermelon patch. No melons have started yet. I have like zucchini, I have kale, onions, I have a lot of herbs, and I have to wake up and water that garden before 9 a.m. every morning to give it the best hope for survival. And I get these existential feelings of like, we're gonna run out of water. Like, what happens if none of these watermelons produce? And I like wasted all this water every day watering them. And then, we have pollinator issues. So like I don't know if they're going to get pollinated. Like some of my plants aren't producing. And then I look and like I did a live video where I was like talking about my garden. And then I looked over and there was a eggplant growing on my eggplant. And I was like, there's an eggplant. And then I'm like, okay, it's possible. Things can grow. And yeah, like maybe it's a waste of water. But in this world where like billionaires are wasting water on AI data centers, I'm like, then I'm going to waste water trying to grow watermelons that I'm going to give away to all my friends, you know? Like that's a better use of water. And it's more honoring of the earth. And I have like lots of native plants and stuff. But yeah, like sometimes like hope is a challenging thing in 2026. I have had many moments where I'm like, I don't have any hope. And then I've heard people be like, well, yeah, maybe we don't have any hope. So
Yeah.
how do we keep going with no hope? And it's
There-
like, that's an interesting question, but it's like, we'll plant a seed today. And I didn't, this is an idea I've seen. I actually saw a video from Gaza like way like I've been saying like hope is a seed for the future for many years, but I saw this video from Gaza maybe a year or two ago, a young child who was like growing corn in their like makeshift little tent area where they had been bombed, and they were growing corn and all the neighbors were coming by to see the corn grow. And I was just thinking, we are living in devastating times here in the so-called US, but that's nothing compared to the places in this world that are like living in state sanctioned like genocides and like destruction for corporations, for billionaires, for Zionists, etc. But like we can still get up every day and plant seeds, and like seeds will still grow, and people are still having children, and like,
Yeah.
so and part, we can still make art, like we can still express ourselves, like we still have so much left. Like, yeah, we're looking down the barrel at a scary world, but like here we are like living in this and like finding ways to be hopeful or like find joy.
Yeah. I actually want to add another thing about Saturn that I feel like is Saturnian about this conversation, that Saturn's not just about necessarily like boundaries and structures. It's also about confronting reality without illusion. And so this is like probably one of the strongest Capricorn threads is that Capricorn asks, what is true, regardless of whether it's comforting or not? And I feel that a lot in your approach, especially like you've been really getting into Substack recently, and you recently released this Substack article titled Love in a Time of Mass Extinction, Integrating Ecological Grief into Our Art Ritual Work. And that whole piece, I mean, I would even like to read a few of the quotes from it if you feel open
Oh,
to
thanks, Jeff.
it.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
It starts off, I think about climate change all the time. I always had, as a child growing up in the 1980s and 90s in Humboldt County, I learned early on about tree sitting, uh, industrial pollution, and overflowing landfills from the time I was a young child. As a young adult, I was a vegetarian bike commuter who blamed car owners for the endless wars in the Middle East. So I believe the ecological grief has been with me for decades, and it's been interesting these last couple years as the real effects of man-made climate change have caused dangerous, widespread wildfire fires and flooding, out of control hurricanes and storms, and to watch so many people awakening to this reality has been both a balm and a wound. Yeah. Do you feel how that is like pretty Saturnian and Capricorn?
I do because yeah, it is the cold hard reality. It's of, it's the bones of Capricorn and Saturn. And I think also like what you're bringing up very much makes me reflect on like Neptune's ingress into Aries because I feel like that's, like there's no time we can't like be like I've had to confront so many of my delusions like since that change has happened. And I think like
Oh,
a lot of people have had to and some people aren't. But the ecological grief is it's hard to cope with. Like we are living in mass extinction. We do have to face the fact that in the next 100 years, like we've passed that point where we can make systemic change to stop climate change. We passed that point because of our leadership. So now we just have to be like, okay, in the next 100 years, we're going to lose thousands of plant and animal species. And it's not even like you or I really that's going to see it. It's like the babies being born today that are going to have to live in a world where they're just watching extinctions, sea animals and like desert animals and like Joshua trees and like so many different species just and it's so a lot of times I think when people like it's kind of dark like I think some people unfollowed me on some set I was like what did I say but whatever but I like feel like a lot of times like when we hear mass extinction a lot of things I hear people say is like well, people aren't that great anyway. We kind of fucked everything up. Sorry if I'm not allowed to cuss. Like we kind of messed everything up. Like whatever. And I'm like, it's mass extinction isn't about people. It's about animals and plants. It's about us having to watch the consequences of like boom, like Reaganomics, like colonization, like, billionaire culture, but like the Epstein class, etc. But like it is about us having, and people that are, more vulnerable in the economic system, definitely. But for the most part, like people are here to stay, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, now we're even shifting into like AI and like, it's
yep.
really people anymore. It's actually like I was just in San Francisco this past weekend and so many cars driving without humans driving them. Yeah, I think that there's also a thing with geological time in Capricorn, and when you're like saying something about, oh, this has been with me for decades. I mean, Capricorn is a 10th sign, which is like
Yeah.
decade is 10 years. Like there's something like Saturnian in that kind of long-term approach. And I think there's Capricorn often looks at systems rather than like pointing blame on individuals, although we could with certain leadership, but Capricorn rarely blames isolated people. I think it examines institutions and notices the repeated attention towards leadership and wealth and power and like all of those things
Yes, I agree with you.
in tandem with carrying collective grief. It's still the sea goat. I think there's also Capricorn carries collective grief too, amidst all of that.
Yeah.
So there's a thing I like to do on the podcast. It's called Whimsical Wanderings, and it's a stream of consciousness experience where I ask you a series of questions. There's no right or wrong answer. You just trust what you're hearing and what you're feeling is the first thing that comes up. And we're doing it with the intention as a collective message for this Capricorn full moon. So it's the collective field. Do you feel open to
Let's do it.
Okay. So let's take a moment to just ground into Capricorn's body parts. This is the bones, the teeth, the knees, and I'll begin asking you these questions. Capricorn arrives back home after a long day of work. Before Capricorn is able to fully rest, they need to attend to this.
Their feet.
They need to attend to their feet. This is a
Yeah.
good place for Capricorn to channel their energy because
It is what connects them to the earth.
once they attend to their feet, the self-care they go to in this moment is
Aromatherapy.
this is a good fit for Capricorn because
Because Capricorn can sometimes be so pragmatic that the aromatherapy allows us to reflect back on memories and associations.
Is there a certain scent of aromatherapy that Capricorn could call upon in this moment?
Lemongrass.
What are the properties of lemongrass?
Lemongrass is very invigorating and uplifting to the body in its scent and very antiviral, good for fighting off infections. So fortifying to the whole body.
Now that Capricorn's done that, they're ready to make a beverage. What kind of beverage does Capricorn make?
A dandelion root based herbal coffee.
They take this dandelion root coffee with them where?
Outside to watch the sunset.
Now that they're watching the sunset, Capricorn's ready to go back to their workbench. What is Capricorn working on right now?
Sewing together two tanned hides.
Say it again?
This is what I'm seeing. Okay, they're sewing together like two tanned hides, like with a very thick string. I've never done this, so I don't know what that would take, but that was what I saw.
What are tantides?
Tanned hides,
Oh,
like of animals.
Oh, tan hides.
Yeah.
Okay. In order to complete this project, Capricorn needs.
A very powerful sewing needle that
Mhm.
probably has a different name for people that really do that, and a very strong thread.
To offer their support, one of these Capricorn ancestors appear. The pioneering entrepreneur, Madam C.J. Walker, who became the first self-made female millionaire by building a hair care empire for Black women. The iconic singer and outspoken activist and actress Eartha Kitt, who's celebrated for her magnetic stage presence, or the grounding sculptor Louise Bourgeois, whose deeply psychological work transformed personal memory, family dynamics, and healing into huge art pieces.
Eartha Kitt.
What message does Eartha Kitt have for us in this moment?
Remember to take long, deep breaths and sit with a strong spine.
To offer deeper insights, Capricorn reaches for a tarot or oracle deck.
The Living Altar Oracle deck.
Do you feel like you could go and pick that up and pull us a card for the Capricorn?
Yes. Aha. Adolescence,
Whoa.
which maybe is a nod to Jupiter and Leo.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a guidebook? Do you want to read the message?
Yes. This deck has like different like seasons of things. So it's like first quarter moon, third quarter moon, full moon, and then like adolescence, childhood.
Okay.
Okay, there it is. The spell. I am the catalyst of my itinerary pyre. I am the torch and the wood and the flame. I am passion nurturing the seeds of logic and insight. I take the necessary risk to establish, reinvent, deconstruct, and reestablish my own identity. I pave my own path with boldness and courage. I push my edges knowing that I am held in the safety of accountability with the spirits who guide me, my higher self, and those who have traveled before me. I am my own best friend. My name is the one I dare to make for myself.
Dang.
It's a really good deck.
I actually felt some Capricorn themes in
Yeah.
there. And you did bring up adolescence, like the kids that are being born now and the world that they're going to inherit as well.
Yeah.
You think of that. But yeah, that was our channeled message. And so we can kind of unpack some of it. So one of the image that stands out the most to me right now and feels the most mysterious is maybe, I think you said two tan hides being sewn together. And you're like, I've never done this before.
Yeah. That was just when you were like sitting on a bench. I don't even know if you said sitting on a bench. It was just like this person at sunset sewing two tanned hides together.
Yeah. I mean, sewing represents repair and
Mhm.
healing, but also conscious craftsmanship.
And then like the tanned hides could be the repurposing,
yeah,
repair and repurpose.
which I think is very Capricorn, actually. I have Venus in Capricorn, and I've always connected that to everything that I own. Anything that you see in my house is not bought new.
Mm.
Anything is repurposed. And I like kind of like older furniture that has stories. And I also like that's one of the ways that I feel like I can live in alignment with my love for the environment is by not buying brand.
Yeah.
But there's also something too about like, I mean, because hides are animal skins, they carry themes of like mortality and instinct and protection. And I think sewing them together can represent like joining two histories or healing a divide, which I think with Uranus and Gemini right now, there's just like a lot of divide. I mean, the United States
Yes.
has Uranus and Gemini in their Sibley chart, and I think of the last time Uranus was in Gemini was a civil war.
Hmm. And then
Yeah.
we've got Mars
Mhm.
meeting Uranus and Gemini on
There's a
the
lot
day of,
happening.
yeah, there's a lot happening.
Full moon, yeah. So Corinna's speaking to Mars is entering Gemini and joining with Uranus, and that exact date is July 4th that they join in the sky. Jupiter's shifting into Leo, Mercury stationing retrograde in Cancer. Like there, this full moon, there's like a lot of kind of churning like shifts.
Hmm.
Yeah. So just acknowledging that. But I think there's something kind of peaceful about there's like sewing two tan hides together at sunset, but then
After a long day of work.
But then Eartha Kitt comes on by who's
Yeah.
like doesn't take shit from anyone.
Yeah.
I like
That's,
that Eartha Kitt joined us there. Um, And also the connection to the feet. So I'm seeing like Capricorn barefoot in this moment. Makes me think of another Capricorn who often performed barefoot is Janis Joplin.
oh,
Yeah. Thank you for being open to that journey. What is it
yeah, that was
like now
interesting.
for you, like reflecting on the whole journey? What are you feeling into for this Capricorn full moon for us?
I feel like, yeah, like you said, this full moon is kind of like a catalyst or a driver for all these other transits. And it feels like we've been through a lot of that lately. It's like all these, and what I'm kind of feeling in general about all of that, like all these big shifts, like planetary shifts, as well as big shifts in our world, is that emotionally, I think a lot of us, emotionally and in the way that we live our life, we have not caught up to what is going on around us yet. Like things are happening so quickly and we're moving at a slower pace. And I think that again is because we need to integrate. And what I see is like this Capricorn moon as like an ability to like integrate the process. Because Capricorn is the process. So it's sort of integrate the life lessons, like you brought up earlier in this conversation about like, we have this Jupiter changing signs happening right on a Capricorn full moon for the second time in a row.
Mhm.
And this is like an opportunity to reflect on like, um, like where we stand in our life, what our values are. Like, what are our values aligned with the way that we're acting and behaving? Um, and I think this full moon is a time to be really solid in our values and grounded in them in order to deal with what is to come.
Yeah. Yeah, you are offering herbal consultations this summer, which I think could be a cool way for people to get in touch with you who are resonating with you and also your Substack. Would you like to share with us a little bit about your flower essence rituals as we get to the end of our conversation
Yes.
here?
So I know there's like so much to talk about. I've been doing flower essences for years, making them, and I've started like I'm teaching a 6 month course on them right now, and I've started doing like psychic readings with flower essences, and I just put those on my website for bookings. I don't know how well those will go on Zoom, to be honest, because I like being able to actually give people a drop of the essence, but if anyone wants to try it on Zoom, we can give it a shot. And then I can also make custom essences that I can ship to people. And then the herbal consultations, like I've been thinking about, one Capricorn thing. I'm always kind of figuring out like how do I keep my work accessible and also like take care of myself, which is harder with like inflation and like other stuff. But the herbal consultations right now, I'm doing them for only $33 for a half hour. And the idea is that I have so much medicine, I make so much medicine, I make so many flower essences, and I know that they can help people. But sometimes people, I think our overculture of like, try this thing and you'll lose 300 pounds in a minute or whatever. I'm like exaggerating. But like the overculture is like, take this and you'll get this result. And that's just not how anything in this life works. So I'm offering the consultations just to like, if someone's like, I know that I need support in this area of my life, but I don't really know what's a good fit for me. You can do the consultation, and then you also like it's almost free because then you get a $20 credit towards the shop. So
Hmm.
then, we can talk. I can figure out like what's going on with your constitution, your health history, like really briefly, and then recommend some herbs and flower essences.
Hmm.
Because I think we really need to take care of ourselves and each other right now. Like that's maybe all we can do. And herbs are great for that, and flower essences are great for that.
Where could someone sign up for this?
I still use the Milk Thistle website. Milk Thistle still exists. It's just not a storefront. So milkthistleyuccavalley.com under the bookings link, you can book. It's under general consultation. This is like only really in July that I'm doing it because it's a pretty smoking deal, y'all. So I'm only really doing them in July. So you can book there. And yeah, my Substack, CorinnaRosella.substack.com. Follow me there. I'm really enjoying sharing. And I think as a Libra rising, Mars is gonna in Gemini is gonna be transiting my ninth house. So I'm like, I'm gonna write more. I'm gonna
Yeah.
publish more stuff.
And not only that, that means Uranus is in Gemini in your ninth house for
Yes,
like 6 or 7 years.
I
So you can
know.
expect more of that, but Mars will definitely give it that extra umph.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think also make like feels very aligned to, that July offering you have during Cancer season. Cancer season seems like a good time to check in with these practices that bring deeper care to us. And you beautifully embody both Capricorn's devotion and love of service to the collective and Cancer's care and intuitive wisdom. So thank you for being a living example for us here on this Capricorn full moon and carving out this space in your life.
Thanks to you, Jeff, for creating this platform and doing everything that you do.
Thanks, Karina. And come see us out at the Palm Springs Art Museum this August for the Pisces full moon eclipse. The last eclipse in the Pisces Virgo axis before we fully shift to Leo and Aquarius eclipses. Hope to see you then.
Bye. I don't know.
Again, thank you as always, cousins, for tuning in to the podcast. Without you, this show would not be possible. I'm hoping this Capricorn full moon is illuminating, wishing you blessings to you and your loved ones, and whatever you receive from this podcast episode may it continue to offer you a ripple effect of healing in your life and in the lives of those around you. And I'll see you next week as we check in. Probably a little bit more with Jupiter and Leo, I'd imagine. And also, we'll check in with the astrology of the week next Monday. And that will be on July 6th. So I hope you have a beautiful week. And I'll see you next time. Take sweet care. And remember, deep breaths.